Welcome to Bots and Beyond, your weekly dose of all things automation, mixing up end user, vendor and consultant experience to create your go-to podcast for bot-related insights. I am your host, Wayne Butterfield. Hi everybody and welcome back to Bots and Beyond. Another great episode and guest, of course, lined up this week. I want to introduce you to Alex at Enate. So hello, Alex.
Hi, Wayne.
Hello. And I'm really looking forward to today's episode for a number of different reasons. Again, very different topic to what we've discussed. We're going to talk about a little bit about wine and not just the stuff that you drink, and also your coast to coast bike ride. And now I know you very well, but I think the rest of the audience deserve a who you are, what you do, and why you do it intro, please, Alex.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Alex Purvis. I am the sales director for a company called Enate, and Enate is an orchestration platform. So I'll sort of go into a bit more detail around what that is, but we play very much in that world of intelligent automation that you know very well and that your listeners understand. So I've been at the company for a couple of years now, and it's been a bit of a ride. But we're growing at a ridiculous pace at the moment, and it's very, very enjoyable and very entertaining to be there. So, yeah.
Fantastic. And that brings us on to your bot name. I'm going to call you the orchestrator. Now, no pun intended there, right? Although there is, really. There's two things, though. The orchestration of bringing people together, the wine club, and we'll talk about a little bit about that later on. And obviously, you are working for an organization whose sole purpose is to orchestrate. And again, I don't want to steal your thunder, but the alignment of people and technology. So I guess with that intro, it'd be fantastic. Like, what is orchestration? Like, explain that to the listeners, and then let's figure out how useful that is in the world of intelligent automation.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. So orchestration is, as you say, it's bringing the technology and the people together. So I always quite openly and honestly sort of start to tell people about what orchestration is, and I say it's not a particularly sexy tool. There are things that are far whizzier and flashier than orchestration out there, but what we do is bring that all together and I guess. So in any organization, you're going to have your legacy applications that you can't get rid of, like a creaky 20-odd-year-old ERP system that is in the corner that nobody wants to touch. And then you're going to have the opposite end of the scale, which is all of these amazing AI tools that, we all see at events when events were a thing in what feels like the distant past now. But those tools that you see and you go, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. And I've, can think of a really cool use case within our organization. But you have to marry the two. And then somewhere in the middle, you've still got the people doing certain parts of manual bits of a process, and you've got to bring it all together. So orchestration is, I always describe it as being a bit like a conveyor belt, really. It is the thing that keeps work moving throughout the organization and makes sure that the right resource, whether that's a human resource or it's a digital resource, gets the right piece of work at the right time. So making sure, as I say, that work keeps moving throughout the organization and that we're delivering end-to-end services to end users, whether that's an external end user, i.e. a customer, or it might be an internal end user, so a particular part of the rest of the business. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. And I guess that, we've always spoken about technology replacing people. I guess orchestration is trying to harmonize and make that switch between tech, bots and people as seamless as possible. And I think we know, right, that, and the audience will hopefully know that we very rarely automate a process end to end.
Yeah.
There's always exceptions, even when we do automate what feels like an end-to-end process. And so there's always people involved somewhere, in one place or another. Like, talk to me about some of the benefits of orchestration. I guess one off the top of my head would be, if you have human and bots in a single platform, there's got to be a data benefit, right? Is there kind of data? Am I like, where does the role of orchestration play in that? That feels to me, as well as other benefits, that feels like a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a lot of our client base actually choose to put the platform over their wholly manual processes before they start to look at automation, because they want to understand the as-is situation to project an accurate business case. So often we see that the return on investments that we've predicted, we fall foul of them and we don't hit the mark, because actually we weren't using accurate data to understand what the starting point really looked like. So as I say, quite a number of people use the platform on the human side of their business first, almost to model and understand their processes and where the best opportunities are. Lots of complementary technology can be used in conjunction with each other, to make those end-to-end processes run much more efficiently across our business. So from a data perspective, we're going to give you the visibility to understand what's actually happening within the business, and therefore what tool is the right tool for you, because there's lots of task-based automation out there. But automation isn't right for everything, just as technologies like optical character recognition, don't make a huge amount of sense in certain processes, but they do make a lot of sense in other areas. So we're going to give you that understanding of the right tool for the right job, if you like.
Excellent. And I guess things have changed, as we'll all be aware. We're all kind of working in different places. We've got a campaign, I guess, at the moment called Boundaryless, which I think kind of plays into this. So talk to us a little bit about what Boundaryless means, what it means to you guys, what it means to Enate, and why really it should be something our listeners are aware of.
Well, I think Boundaryless is kind of we actually sort of started to talk about this before the pandemic, but it's become much more apparent that this is something that is happening to us all at the moment. Everybody's working from home. We need to keep work moving throughout our organization, and we need to continue to deliver services to our clients. But actually we don't have the benefit of being able to look across the room and talk to people in an office anymore. So Boundaryless is really about kind of keeping work and service delivery going throughout the times that we live in at the moment. But also on a more positive note, it's about allowing people to work in a way that makes sense for them. So whether that's at different times in the day, whether that's around childcare, whether it's from different locations. I remember our CEO doing conference calls from a park bench back in the summer because he wanted to be outside. And that's kind of the ethos behind Boundaryless, is that we should actually have the freedom to work in a way that makes sense for us and makes life more enjoyable for us, because we all are more productive when we're given that freedom to work in a way that makes sense. So I think Boundaryless really centers around people doing the right thing for them, but with the understanding and the confidence that we're still going to deliver those services to our customers at the end of the day.
I guess that kind of brings us on to the wine club. Now, of course, it does have a double meaning, but being initially part of it, it was very much about an opportunity in times of change for us to come together as a collective and have a wine. Moan.
A wine and a wine, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, to be fair, there was very little moaning. It was definitely a lot more wine. And so talk to us about this, because I guess, there's some fantastic work and it continues to gain momentum. And when I say it knocks down boundaries, there was a great and the good from the intelligent automation landscape coming together, leaving, who they worked for at the door and just bringing skills and, themselves. And I think that's what I mean by certainly knocking down boundaries. But, I don't want to steal your thunder again. Please tell us about the wine club and tell us about some of the amazing things that you've been doing.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I guess it doesn't translate in a podcast, but it's important to point out that it's the wine club, wine being with a H, which, as you say, I think we kind of, I came up with it at the very beginning of the lockdown. So it was the sort of later end of March. And we were thrown into this situation where we were told that we all needed to stay at home. And certainly in our organisation, there was I think about a week where we were having conversations internally and everything was a bit novel, and we were kind of going, okay, what's going to happen and what's this going to be like? And then the sort of gravity of the situation hit, I think, for me after about 7 days. And I kind of went, oh, I feel completely helpless. I feel like I don't know what to do to kind of contribute to the situation that's happening. And obviously corporate life it was as though somebody had pressed the pause button on all the projects that we were doing, because nobody quite knew what was going to happen and how this was going to play out. So I was facing the fact that I had a bit of time on my hands, and I thought, how can I use that time effectively, and how can I use my skills and my experience and the skills and the experience that I know people have within my network to turn our attention to something that is a bit more altruistic and that has some form of connection with what's going on in the world at the moment. So Wine Club was kind of born, really. And so we invited, as you say, the great and the good from the intelligent automation world. So that was people that had products to offer or services to offer. And it was also people I would call customers who, have gone through these projects. They've got the battle scars, they've got the war wounds, they know the mistakes to avoid and the positives to take from the work that they'd done, and that they could then pass that on to somebody that wasn't as well versed in our world, and we could do something, to kind of give back to different communities. And that wasn't ever intended just to be the NHS, but it just kind of took on that guise, really. And we were introduced to some very, very senior people at the NHS. So one of the first people that came on to talk to us was the Director of Innovation at Alder Hey Children's Hospital, talking to us about the chaos, basically, that was unfolding. And at that point in time, as I say, I think this was the final week of March, and they knew that they had about 2 weeks before all hell was let loose, basically, within their hospital. And they were taking children from all the other general hospitals so that they could make room for COVID patients and have more beds. And then from there, we started talking to the likes of senior cardiologists that had worked for Great Ormond Street. And actually, it was Martin Elliott, he was the cardiologist in question, that said, I think actually everything is moving too quickly for you to really get your hands around a problem statement and make a huge difference to something that's happening right now. But what I do think that you have is the opportunity to talk to people about what's going to come afterwards. So he was the person that really kind of pointed us in the direction of, okay, what next? So then we started looking at, the ways in which intelligent automation could address issues such as rescheduling patients that had elective surgeries cancelled because of COVID. And, in between, we've kind of worked with a handful of different trusts now to work on different projects. But, that's ranging from doing things like rescheduling those surgeries right through to underpinning and using intelligent automation to underpin mental health support initiatives for NHS staff. And that's something that we're now talking to the national team about on a UK-wide scale. So it started out in Great Ormond Street Hospital, and it's now being talked about in the upper echelons of government and the NHS to say, okay, how can we roll this out across the UK. And to think that, you know, where we started and where we've ended up, just throughout the course of 8 months, I think we've done some phenomenal things. And it's all testament to the people that are on that group, having a sense of coming together and dropping all commercial interest, because everything obviously is done free of charge. And also people that would compete in the corporate world coming together to work on projects collaboratively and kind of saying, oh, you know, your product's better than mine at this, and actually you should be the one throwing your hat in the ring for this particular task team, because actually your product makes more sense than mine does. I've never seen that in a corporate world. And it's been completely refreshing and an amazing thing to be part of. Yeah, so I feel like it's my baby, and I'm very proud of it.
Excellent, and so you should be. I mean, it's fantastic. Just as you know, as you say, bringing those people together, and obviously the cause, you know, the good causes that you are looking to positively affect. And that, I guess, brings us a little bit onto the bike ride. Now, just for context, when was the last time you actually got on a bike before you decided? And originally this was to travel to Paris, right? And I think you know, COVID kind of hit, and you know, France was closed, and you had to change tact. But rather than give in, again, another testament, it's like, well, you know, we can't travel to France. You know what we'll do? We'll just travel coast to coast. I mean, but tell us your background on cycling before we start, because I don't think you've really been on a bike that frequently, and suddenly you're traveling coast to coast.
Yeah, so prior to the cycling trip, the challenge, I think the last time I was on a bike was about 5 years ago in Belgium doing a pub crawl. And so that's the extent of my cycling prowess. I didn't even own a bike at the time of actually up to the challenge, but like a lot of people in lockdown kind of went, oh, that's a good idea. I think I'll buy myself a bike. And it hadn't even arrived before I kind of went, oh, okay, we'll you know, I happened to notice that Great Ormond Street were doing London to Paris to raise money for their charity. And I rallied around a few people in the wine club and went, come on, this is an opportunity for us to do something else, to do something extra, to get fit while we do it, and probably have a few tales to tell by the end of it, which I didn't quite realize I'd have as many to tell as I do now. But as you say, we seem to be thwarted at every possible opportunity. So they closed the travel corridor between the UK and France. So Great Ormond Street themselves had to pull the London to Paris and defer that to next year. But the dates when they deferred it to just so happened to coincide with the dates that I'm supposedly, hopefully, all being well, getting married next year. So I thought, well, I can't do that. And rather than just bow out of the show, I kind of went, okay, what else can we do instead? So we made it UK only. And as you say, we decided we'd do coast to coast, which sounded all right at the time until I realised the route actually took me over the Lake District, the Yorkshire Dales, and the Yorkshire Moors. And I thought, that's a bit more climbing than flat France, which, you know, didn't seem too scary, you know, at the beginning when we were sort of thinking we were going to do London to Paris. But yeah, I paid for it in the end. I did put in the training rides, but there were some climbs in that challenge that I would rather not repeat.
I can imagine having, you know, being a Yorkshireman myself and having to run round the hills, even of Leeds. Yeah, I know. And yes, well done. I mean, to be fair, I was following your social posts and everything, and obviously Will Harris, my partner in crime at ISG Automation, was one of the Three Musketeers, right? Who was also, I think he's a big motorcyclist. So for him to not have a motor on the bike was a challenge in itself. But so I've heard many of the tales, and obviously hats off. I think it was money raised. It was a great cause, and of course those memories are gonna last a lifetime. Well, I think on that note, I think we'll draw the episode to a close. But it's been amazing catching up with you, and I think it's brilliant to get the wider world of intelligent automation aware of the Wine Club and the good that it's doing. Obviously, talking about orchestration for the first time on Bots and Beyond as well, and that role of technology linking with people seamlessly is obviously really important as well. And of course, getting to know you a little bit more, Alex. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening. And we will speak to you next week.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thanks for listening to ISG Automation's Bots and Beyond podcast, your weekly dose of all things automation. See you next week for more news and views on RPA, intelligent automation, and AI.